Okay, I'm calling to order this meeting of the school board committee, school board. Dr. Gupta is not here tonight, so in my role as vice chair, it falls to me to lead the meeting. Next item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you'd please rise. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, next item is the approval of our agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, before we proceed, we do need to add one item to the agenda under the consent agenda, which is item H. We need to add an additional HR addendum report, so this would be item H6.
Okay.
So I'm moving that we make that amendment to the agenda.
Okay. Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, we're voting on the amendment. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Gilio?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
Yes?
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Dr. Tinsley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, now we will vote on the amended agenda. If there's any discussion, I don't hear any, so please call the roll.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Gilio?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
Yes?
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Dr. Tinsley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Next is chair comments. The only comment I have to make is to thank Lucy White for her 2 years of serving as our student representative from EC Glass. And we have something I'm sure she will treasure for the rest of her life.
Very nice.
So thank you very much to Lucy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is item E. We have a presentation about the Lynchburg Youth Survey. Dr. Copeland, do you want to call up the people?
I'll turn it over to Zoe Wickham-Stokes to introduce the crew, and then they'll give their presentation.
Yes, sir. Good evening, board. Thank you for allowing us to I'm sorry, I'm still in work mode. Present. I'm Zoe Stokes. For those who do not know me, I am in student services. I am also the liaison for the Health Advisory Committee, which was tasked with bullying this year. So we've actually got 2 presentations. First, everybody on the Health Advisory Committee, would you mind standing? So we have a few of our folks here. Some folks couldn't make it or may come in later. And then we have a subcommittee that works on the youth survey. So now is our chair for the Health Advisory, and she is stepping down, so I would like to publicly thank her for all she did for the Health Advisory this year and pushed us forward and kept us on track. So thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
And then Kim Foster, who is with the Health Department, she will present the youth survey, and then she will introduce our next presenter for the Health Advisory.
All right, thanks, Zoe. Good evening. Good evening. Let me get situated here real quick. Had to bring my notes. All right, so I'm Kim Foster. As Zoe said, I am the Population Health Manager for the Central Virginia Health District. And I've been on the School Health Advisory Board for, gosh, I think 5 years or so. And this is the 3rd time that I've been here to present data from the Lynchburg Youth Survey. The Lynchburg Youth Survey is conducted every other year. And nearly all, it is a part of Youth Risk Behavior Survey, which is a national survey that's conducted by the CDC. And the Lynchburg survey is based off of that, with some questions added in that are part of our Drug Free Communities grant as well. The survey monitors 6 categories of health-related behaviors that contribute to the leading cause of death and disability among youth and adults, and compares local responses with national and state benchmarks. So just a little bit about the methodology. Lynchburg City Schools, as they've done in the past, contacted parents before the survey to inform them of the purpose, and it was a passive opt-out, or a passive approval, I'm sorry. So if they wanted to decline permission, then they could opt out for their child to participate, and accommodations were made for that. The survey is done for 8th, 10th, and 12th grade students, and this year it consisted of 130 questions. There are some limitations when you're doing these types of surveys. One is that it's a self-reported method of collecting data, which a lot of our survey tools do that we use, across the state and nation, but it gives us good ideas of trends, what has changed, what might be emerging, and those types of things. So self-reported data can also be really good to look at where we need to focus efforts. It is also limited to current LCS students. And again, it's a snapshot of data, so it can't determine causality and that type of thing, but it can show trends. We did have a slightly smaller data set this year compared to previous years, but next slide, please. But we did have an overall response rate of 53.5%, and therefore it's still considered to be generally representative of Lynchburg City 8th, 10th, and 12th grade students. And you can see the breakdown there in the slide. Next slide, please. So we had a committee, as Zoe mentioned, that kind of worked on looking at the results of the survey, and it's a lot of questions, and there's a lot of data, as you can see, that was presented. So what we decided to do is to categorize those into 5 different themes. And then for this presentation, because we don't have a lot of time, we're just going to point out some of the opportunities that we have to grow, and also some strengths that we saw in the data of the survey. We're definitely not going to go over all the data, but you do have that on hand. So these are the 5 categories that we kind of lumped and themed things together in. Next slide, please. So first we're going to talk about violence and safety. And next slide, like I said, some opportunities for growth. And when I'm mentioning these, that doesn't mean just for the school. These are community-wide data sets that are used across varying agencies, nonprofits, health departments. So our community as a whole looks at this data. They base plans and strategic goals in line with some of this data. But more students are reporting driving under the influence of marijuana than in the past. And when I'm comparing the data, just for reference, this is compared to the 2022 data set. I'm just not going to mention the comparison every time. Threats or injury with a weapon are increasing in both the community and in school settings, in addition to an increased rate of physical fights on school property. It is also of concern that 9.1% of students report having experienced sexual violence in the past year. And then on the strengths and wins, we are seeing that more students are wearing seatbelts. And although reports of driving under the influence of marijuana is higher than driving under the influence of alcohol, reports for both of those have declined since the previous survey report. Also, reports of carrying a weapon to school are very low across all grades. Next slide, please. And now we're going to go into the category of substance use. Next slide. I'm freezing. I don't know why. Okay. Sorry. There we go. All right. So more students are reporting I apologize. My slides are frozen here for me. All right, we'll go off the cuff here. So peer disapproval decreases for all substances as students advance in grade level. And what we're seeing is that's most concerning is the increase in vaping, which you guys probably are not surprised about. And that aligns with our national trends. Only 50% of students perceive electronic vapor products are risky, and as we know, perceived risk is important. It's an important data point because it gives us an indication of how willing someone may be to change a behavior. And we do find that only 68% of parents are setting clear rules about substance use. Next slide, please. We are seeing binge drinking and cigarette smoking below the national average, which is a positive to note, and 71.5% of students report never having consumed alcohol. Most students believe their parents disapprove of alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana use, so seeing kind of that parental disapproval is a positive note here. And next slide, please. In relationships and social supports, and I really wish I could get my thing to move along. I'm gonna try it again. Okay. So in relationship and social supports, most Lynchburg students across all grade levels report that they have many chances to get involved in sports, clubs, and other school activities outside of class, and that the school lets them and or their parents know when they have done something well. So that's a very positive theme overall that we're seeing there. And then in the opportunities for growth, this section is where some of the bullying data comes in, as well as data related to sexual behaviors and relationships. Trends show an increase in students reporting missing school due to fears of bullying, and a large percentage of students, 22.7%, report that they would tell no one if they were bullied, and only 6.1% would tell school staff. As for sexual relationships, it should be noted that less youth report using condoms as a birth control method, and very few youth report having been tested for HIV and other STIs, and these numbers are less than the national average. Reports of intimate partner violence during the past 12 months have nearly doubled for 10th graders, but it has decreased for other grades. I think I'm moving now. On a positive note, we're seeing a downward trend in some of the responses related to bullying to include sending or receiving online threats or sexually inappropriate content, bullying others, and witnessing bullying and being bullied on school property. We would love to see these trends continue downward. It is important to note that 35% of youth would tell a parent or guardian if they were being bullied. So we found that that was definitely a positive trend. The wins regarding sexual activity include almost 3/4 of sexually active youth report using some form of birth control. And as noted previously, the 8th and 12th graders are reporting less intimate partner violence. And then mental health. And next slide, please. We're going to take a look at that. Youth were asked if during the past 12 months, did they ever feel so sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 weeks or more in a row that they stopped doing some usual activities. Although these findings were lower than the state and national levels, 30% resonated with this statement. Next slide. The vast majority of students reported never intentionally harming themselves, which is a strength and win in this category. In addition, we see a decline in students who considered or planned or attempted suicide in the past year. So these numbers seem to be trending down from post-pandemic data that we had. And the majority of parents are setting clear rules for electronic device use and social media and texting. And then our next category under healthy lifestyles, just pointing out a few things here. As far as opportunities for growth, self-perceptions about weight and desiring to lose weight continues to be common. An emerging trend that we saw that we hadn't seen before is that fasting is reported as the most common method for weight control. And so kind of aligns with some of the adults that are doing intermittent fasting and different things, so we wanted to point that out. As a strength, fewer students who perceive themselves as being under or overweight, and most students are reporting at least some physical activity in the past 7 days, which is up from prior. So hopefully that trend will continue, that they're becoming more physically active. So next slide. I know that was a quick snapshot, but like I said, it's a lot of data, and we are, available outside of this meeting to talk about any of the other data. But we did organize some recommendations and next steps, like I said, that not only for the school, but also for the community at large, community partners and organizations that work with youth. So under violence and safety, and these are by no means a full list, just some things that we may want to think about as we move forward and try to make changes in the data for the next rendition of the survey. Violence and safety, thinking about increasing education about the dangers of driving under the influence of marijuana. There's been a lot done about the driving under the influence of alcohol, but not a lot about marijuana and driving. Increasing support in school and community settings for conflict resolution and emotional regulation to address concerns about fighting and physical harm. Substance use, of course, trying to increase awareness about the risk of vaping and reinforcing that peer disapproval norms to reduce that acceptance of substance use. Under relationships and social supports, expanding education and awareness about bullying and its impact. We're going to have a presentation with some of the School Health Advisory Board recommendations after this. Encouraging and empowering students to report bullying, increasing digital safety education, because it seems that a lot of the bullying is happening over electronic devices. Increasing education and awareness of STI prevention, testing, and healthy relationships. And the next slide, under mental health, expanding community support for youth struggling with mental health, and addressing self-harm and suicide concerns with targeted interventions. And for healthy lifestyle, we mentioned increasing awareness of the health risk of fasting for youth, and monitor and address gambling-related risk among students. And I didn't pull out the data from that, but it is in the report about gambling, but it is something that we are trying to increase awareness with adults as well. So we put that in there under the healthy lifestyle. Next slide, please. Just showing here some of the partner organizations that could use this type of report and this type of data for whatever grant writing, strategic planning, like I mentioned before. And the next slide. So in summary, these findings support monitoring trends in adolescent health behavior, identifying emerging issues, and the development of prevention and intervention programs to support the health of youth. This data is used by health departments, educators, healthcare providers, nonprofits, and community organizations to support programming and communications for improving the health of our youth. Lynchburg City Schools has been surveying youth in the school district since 1999, and you are the only school district in our health district that does the youth survey, so we thank you for that. This would not be possible without the support of LCS and the school board. Next slide, please. And those are the members of the Youth Risk Behavior Survey Subcommittee. Jan and Tegan are part of the CVAR Coalition, which is the Central Virginia Alliance for Recovery Resources. And they have a drug-free communities grant that supports the funding for this project. And next slide. I think that's it. So thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions or concerns? Yes.
I was talking to a nurse that I know, and she was talking about vaping, and I'm sure this has been shared with the kids, but Are they aware that, when you vape, that moisture gets in your lungs and it can turn into pebbles in your lungs? And, it becomes something solid.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that Janet and Tegan from CVAR could speak more on what they're doing within the schools to help increase that awareness, because I know it is one of their goals for that Drug-Free Communities grant that I mentioned, and increasing the education and awareness for vaping. But I agree with you. I don't think a lot of kids are aware
Yeah.
of the risks, or, and also we find with youth, as we have with other substances, that they don't think that's going to happen to them.
Yeah.
So finding creative ways, I think, to get that message across would be powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? I have a question.
Yeah.
I wonder if we could go back to slide 7.
Okay.
Because one of the points there on slide 7, the top bullet, I don't know if it'll eventually come up on the screen, but the top bullet said that driving under the influence of marijuana is higher. Oh, now I'm reading it more carefully. Higher than reports of driving while drinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the first time, I believe, that has shown that reports of driving under the influence of marijuana was higher than them reporting driving drinking.
So it sort of seems like substance abuse is shifting from alcohol to marijuana, at least in the context of
And there seems to
driving.
be a wide perception that marijuana, because it's, they say legal, marijuana is legal, that it's okay. So, and I know you guys are seeing it as well, and in the vape products that you're confiscating and that type of thing. So I think that's definitely an area that we can all work on together.
Mr. Jalil.
Is it, just on that, is it part of your scope to promote those types of ideas or demonstrate, display data and just prevention measures on those subjects?
Are you talking about for the students or?
Vapes and THC and all those things, usage among the students.
Is it part of us to, as a health department, or, I'm sorry, I just,
Part of what you do. You're not just talking about it, putting some sentence on it for students to read. Are you also displaying in other ways?
right, absolutely. I know that there is a Hype Club within the schools that does a lot of that prevention and education.
Hype?
And that is through that Drug-Free Communities grant with CVAR. And they do a number of things with the youth as far as increasing awareness and the prevention side of some of these topics that we've hit on, yes.
All right, so you don't also give advice. I saw that the fasting was described as being somewhat negative, so the dangers of fasting. How are you demonstrating that to the students? Or
So not yet. So what the point is to look at this data and see, where should we as a community or as community agencies focus on for our youth? And that may be one of them, that we decide to get together as, partners and decide how can we make sure youth are aware of, what it can do to a young teenage body to fast for long periods of time. So I don't think that we're at that point, because this data does not go live until after it's presented to you all. And then community partners have access to it off of United Way's website, off of our website, in a variety of other ways. And then some of the coalitions that are already addressing some of these things will look at that and determine how can we best, change what we're doing or incorporate some of this into what we're doing to meet what this data's telling us. Does that help?
a little, yes. So there are positive things that you create based on this data, or work with others to share with the students and to try to promote and get out there. like exercise, it's not just negative, it's also positive. Things like
Absolutely.
exercise, going out into nature and things like that.
Yeah, yes, the data's presented to you guys just to show those trends. And then, you know, for example, last year, the School Health Advisory Board was charged with bullying recommendations, which is going to be presented because of some of the data that came up. So, you know, the data is telling us what the trends are, and then we need to determine what steps can be taken together to make improvements.
There was a young girl, I think her name was Ashley Bushman. She died in Roanoke, and a lot of people put together some points that they would like the school board over there to adopt. But after some discussion, the board did not do any changes to their policy. Do you have that information, or were you covering or following that to see if there's anything that could be added to what you have?
I don't know if any of that will come out in Jabri's presentation specifically, but with the presentation Jabri is looking at, I think, and I don't want to speak for him, but from being on the committee, kind of looking at what is already being done. You know, we're focusing on Lynchburg City Schools, so what is already be done? What you guys are doing a lot already, so not saying that you're having to change, but we are making some recommendations on how to maybe enhance that.
I suggest you find out a little bit about that one in particular because it was a bullying that caused death.
Yeah, I mean, I am familiar with
Pretty well,
that,
okay.
absolutely, yes.
So that's good, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and we'll move on to the next presentation. Is that right?
Yep, and that will be Jabri Poe, and he will be presenting the bullying recommendations that came out of the School Health Advisory Board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Adjust this a little bit since I'm a little tall. Good evening. My name is Jabri Poe, and a member of the School Health Advisory Board. And as Kim mentioned, I'm going to be giving a presentation about recommendations that we came up with about bullying. Lynchburg City Schools already has quite a bit in their policy about bullying, but we have some additional recommendations, which in the slide you'll see are highlighted in yellow. We had quite a few board members that, or committee members that worked hard on this, and Zoe and those alike. So, next slide. We'll start off with, we wanted to make sure we define exactly what bullying is, because if we don't know exactly what bullying is, then I think that would help us get to answers a lot better. So this is the Code of Virginia's definition, which means that bullying means an aggressive or unwanted behavior that is intended to harm, intimidate, or humiliate the victim. It involves a real or perceived power imbalance between the aggressor or aggressors and the victim, and is repeated over a course of time. It causes severe emotional trauma. Bullying includes cyberbullying. Bullying does not include ordinary teasing, horseplay, arguments, or peer conflicts, according to the Code of Virginia 22.1-276.01. Next slide, please. Right here is just a little overview of what we'll be overviewing on the slide. We have 4 stages, if you will, and then some review and final thoughts, and we'll be taking questions from you good folks. So next slide, please. We'll go ahead and start with stage 1. And sorry if that's a little small to read. No, it's messing with my astigmatism from back here. Number 1 is going to be policies and rules. Already, Lynchburg City Schools has a handbook. So we want to make sure that that handbook is available for students, parents, and so forth to be able to read and make sure that the policy remains clear. The next item will be reporting. We have to make sure that students are aware of how they can report and where they can report, making sure that you keep and continue to utilize systems like Speak Up, and making sure that every student knows about an adult or a staff member, a trusted adult that they can report to, and making sure that websites, posters, all different mediums are well posted where they can report bullying to. Moving on to number 3, which is we already have, it looks to be an existing annual training for school staff. So we want to make sure that all Lynchburg City school staff understand exactly what the definition of bullying is, what is bullying versus teasing, according to the Lynchburg City school policy, understanding why some youth bully. We want to get to the root of having that understanding, looking for warning signs so we can get ahead of bullying in the classroom, in the hallways, the bathrooms, lunchrooms, and so forth, and understanding exactly the effects of bullying. We all know that some of our test scores and different things, it's kind of hard to be productive maybe if you're being bullied. So we want to make sure we definitely address that. And again, make sure that the staff understand how to report bullying. Moving on to the highlighted area, and this is the survey, and this is something new that we created. So if you don't mind handing out the survey so you all can actually have a visual of what the survey is that we created. But this survey is would be used to collect data, because without data, it'd be a little hard for us to really understand and address how we can really curb bullying. So with this data will come this survey. We would like to see this survey administered at the beginning of the school year. It'd be nice if we could get this in the beginning of the school year coming up. And we would like to see this survey administered twice a year, once at the beginning and a second time around at the end. Of course, like some things, if parents wanted to opt out of it and so forth, the survey would be anonymous, and it asks questions that really help us identifying what students, and this is a student survey, and it's detailed by grade, at least in the questioning, so we can, of course, address some of the bullying, because bullying may look different depending on the grade level. And then this also would be a measuring stick as we move forward through the years to see the effectiveness and understanding of bullying as we move forward. Next slide, please. Moving on to stage 2, establishing a positive culture within our schools. October is National Anti-Bullying Month, campaign. This is something that Lynchburg City Schools is already probably doing a decent job with, but we just want to make sure that we amplify that with our announcements, our posters, our social media posts, and just putting that constant reminder within our students, staff, and parents among the community at large. Moving on to the second bullet point, which, as you can see, is something that is a new recommendation, and that's actually introducing student-led clubs where anti-bullying is discussed, where maybe students that have been bullied, maybe are bullying, can get together and it be a student-led anti-bullying campaign. And then also, we would like to see a couple times a year when the student body at large gathers, things like assemblies, pep rallies, things of that such, and making sure that we continue to constantly voice the importance of anti-bullying. Number 2 would be our evidence-based prevention. This is something that's already going on at the elementary schools. As you can see, something called Step 2 is currently in place, but we'd like to see this actually implemented by grade level, involving all grades. Next slide, please. Moving on to stage 3, touch points. Touch points, all grade levels, bullying touch points. We want to make sure that when students go to see guidance counselors, disciplinary hearings, one of my part-time places of employment is over at the Lynchburg group home and sometime the detention center. We get a lot of truancy, and you'd be surprised how many kids are not going to school because they're being bullied. So we could really put a curve into our truancy numbers by addressing bullying. Let's see here. Interventions, identify systems by actually tracking bullying incidents, starting out with elementary, check-in, check-outs, making sure that we have social skill groups, also moving towards the middle school, restorative circles, mentoring programs, making sure that we're offering these services. And the goals would be to identify those who have frequent incidents in bullying behavior and those that are targets of bullying. You know, the repeat offenders, we have to make sure that they understand why they may be bullying, and those that are being bullied, identifying those students as well. Once students are identified, they move to an individualized support and intervention system. Moving on to stage 4. And this is our support strategy section, where we have individual support systems. We already have counseling and wraparound services, so we just want to make sure that those services are still out there, support kids who are bullied, and just continue to address bullying behavior. Number 2 is something of a new recommendation, where we have functional assessments and interventions, and really digging into understanding why, and having a behavior plan for those that have been I guess a perpetrator of bullying repetitively. And then you have your other support systems like schedule changes, modifications, and school restrictions, things like in-school suspension, after-school programs, and different recesses for those that can't play well with others, changing lunch tables, community service, restorative circles, and different things of that nature. Next slide, please. And pretty much right now, this is almost at the end, and we just want to review a few of the slides and let you know that in elementary we have the check-in, check-out. There's actually a recommendation document that has some websites, and we'd be more than happy to get those to you if you haven't already, so you can take a look at some of the data, where we pull that data from the elementary level, and just making sure that we review all the 4 stages that we just talked about, continuous evaluation and enhancement of the adaptive approaches, utilizing evidence-based and national resources, promoting those student-led prevention groups, putting it back in their hands. I'm a firm believer of you know, that constant reminder, and making sure that students understand that bullying is just wrong, and reminders during school, different things of that nature. And next part is any questions? Yes, sir.
One of the things that was mentioned was electronic bullying, social media. Have we seen any improvement since the implementation of the governor's bell-to-bell cell phone ban? Has that shown any improvement in electronic bullying?
So once you all implement that survey, we'll get that answer.
Okay. Right.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
So you said that you work with kids that are the bullies, and I was wondering, do you see, when you work with them, does this mostly come from an emotional response to something, or something that they've seen a relative do, so they think it's okay because it's done within the family unit?
So I work with youth that have been bullied, that are the bullies all across. And to be honest with you, it could be all of the above. We have students that, they may have saw, depending on what area of town they came from, they may have seen a murder that night before. They may have went to bed hungry. They may not have, whether it's an economic issue, a socioeconomic issue, living in poverty, different things of that nature. So they may be bullied because they don't have a certain tennis shoe on, or they could be bullying because of things that they do see their parents do. We see adults get on social media and argue with each other and beat each other up. So, I'm a firm believer that, kids learn from learned behavior. And whether that's positive or negative, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of all that.
Okay, I was just wondering.
Yes, sir.
You before me?
No, go ahead.
I noticed that there's a lot of attention to the bullier, and I know that has to be stopped, and it probably should start there. I'm also concerned about the situations that were brought up by Mr. Giglio, that there are victims whose, I don't know if it's being addressed. You didn't spend a lot of time talking about what is being addressed for those. I know that you mentioned intervention, they're separated, segregated so that they can have support groups. I'm concerned about long-term, long-lasting effects on the victims.
Yeah, good question, and that brings me to another thing. Being a member of the SHAB, this is kind of like an introductory. That's why we really want to push this survey so we can really collect some data, and then we can move on to more long-term, actually investing in and making sure, because as you said, there can be a long-term effect on those students, and being able to identify those students and get them the help they need, whether it's wraparound services, different things of the nature, counseling, and just making sure that we're not letting them slip through the cracks.
Because bullies can get over it quicker.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the reasons the board asked for the School Health Advisory Board to look at this is because last year we did a survey of our own, asking both students and teachers, not just about bullying, but looking for impediments to learning that they observed in the classroom. And bullying was something that came up in particular when we heard from students. They complained a lot about bullying. And I've always wondered about whether students really understand the precise definition, if sometimes teasing is interpreted as bullying. It can really be upsetting to someone if they're teased, but that doesn't meet the technical definition. And maybe your survey will help us understand whether students recognize the difference or not. So that's just a comment. Secondly, what about if we can identify a perpetrator, someone who's causing the bullying? In my experience as a young person, those who bully are the least likely to respond to suggestions about what good behavior should be. They often just scoff and roll their eyes. So what I'm wondering about is what can we as the board do through our disciplinary procedures and our student expectations of student behavior to address those who cause bullying against others. And I don't know if you really put a focus on that so much, so maybe I'm just again raising an issue. If we can identify it's this student that's doing it to that student, what do we do
Yes,
with
sir.
the one who's causing it?
Yes, sir. And that's a good question. And if you ask me, that goes even beyond bullying, whether it's, fighting, students that constantly have, a student that has 30 referrals, there's something going on. And a reason why they don't understand that their behavior is issues. So whether it's, building a profile, which, some people may not be a fan of that, but I mean, how else would you identify and get down to the root cause of what is the reason and the rationale behind that student and their behavior? And so, I'm not the biggest fan about, expelling or expulsion unless it's necessary. Because again, as I said, a lot of the youth that I work with, they do have a lot of issues, and being able to drill down and figure out what those issues are is going to be the key.
Yeah, there's probably, in those cases, the student's individual background, they're acting out because of something else in
Yes,
their
sir.
life.
Yes,
And
sir.
if we can help identify that and help them with that, then we can make some
I
progress.
wish I could share some of the harsher stories, but you probably have to.
Well, let me just say thank you personally for what you personally have invested in the children who've had a hard time with this stuff. I know you've put a lot into it, and I think we're grateful.
I've had some sleepless nights.
Yeah. Mrs. Lowry.
I was just gonna say, I hope the kids being bullied I'm sure they're being encouraged, but in their lifetime, that they can take the negative and turn it into a positive. Because I know for me, being bullied as a kid, because I was so much taller than everybody else, so much sooner, as a teacher, I cut the bullying immediately in my room. It just didn't. I said, we will not have that. And that was personal because I'd been through it. So I hope kids are learning you can take this negative and turn it into a positive.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. I hope so. Anything else? Yes, sir.
No, just a question. What initiatives have you developed or are you developing that will address the bullying from these students that you're talking about?
Me personally, I'm a member of the 40 Ways Coalition, which that was started due to gun violence of the murder of Kingston Campbell. So I'm, heavily involved in the community. A lot of the students or youth rather that I work with at the group home, after they leave or move on, especially after you have to be careful with that. But once they become an adult, I still follow up with them, talk to them. Oftentimes I take the youth to church on Sundays, and I have a guy right now. He's no longer in the group home, but he still continues to come and meet. He just texted me the other day telling me about some of his academic improvements and different things of that nature. There's a place out in Windhurst where a lot of the youth in a living program that move on from the group home live at, so I go through there, check on them, different things of that nature, spending my own time and money.
Oh, thank you.
So what I'm hearing is that we, as a community, the more involved we can be with these young people, that's going to help to decrease some of that.
My dad grew up in White Rock Hill, graduated from Dunbar in the 70s, and I hear about all the neighborhood, how if one kid knew this kid and another adult would you might get 3 or 4 spankings from 3 or 4 different people. And to look at today's society and see how our elders are just kind of in their own zone and staying at home watching Netflix and not as involved is a little upsetting. But I can only control myself, and I definitely would like to see more community involvement from everyone. It doesn't matter which community you come from, whether you live on White Rock Hill or you live in Boonesboro, everybody can pitch in.
Mr. Jalil.
Thank you. I like the presentation overall.
Thank you.
And I am in support of this survey. Who came up with these questions?
The SHAB committee.
Okay, very nice. Are you also familiar with the Autumn Bushman bullying incident?
I'm sorry again. Say that again.
Autumn Bushman was a girl who committed suicide based on bullying in Roanoke.
In Roanoke, yes, sir. I guess it was WGBJ7 actually came to one of our coalition meetings right after that, and we did an interview about that. So yes, sir, I'm aware. I'm not aware of all the details and all that good stuff, but
There were a lot of suggestions by parents and those you might want to look up and see if there's something that can be added or implemented in your program. Otherwise, I would just say that there's a lot of discovery language in this presentation, and I think that should be about 10% of I call it a program, because even, bullying is not a new thing. It's old, it's right, it's commonplace, and so you don't want to reinvent the wheel. But it is customized to the individual and to the school and to the situation, so it's good to have some discovery of exactly what's going on. But in order not to reinvent the wheel, I think 80 to 90% of what you're doing should be oriented on taking what works elsewhere and implementing it here. So as much as possible, you could orient this work that we're trying to do towards actionable steps right away.
Yes.
Because it's not a new thing.
Yes,
That would
sir.
be great.
I agree, and we'll continue because a lot of this is driven by you all and what you want the School Health Advisory Board to do. So with your blessings, if as the next year rolls on, if there's something else we need to address, that's fine. But we'd like to continue, and we really would like that data to be looked at from the survey, so we can actually have something to go along, so we can tailor it to Lynchburg City, and then also pull from places in the United States or other states that things seem to be working.
What month will you get back to us?
So we're actually on break, but I never take any day off. I believe we're supposed to work with Dr. Wodaka, some of us, on something. But when do we continue? Is that the start of the school year? The SHAP starts up.
In August, well,
So
depends on when the board votes for.
we're without a leader right now. So
We are requesting new board
Right.
members, advisory board members, and so once that comes in, then we'll have to get the names to the board, so when they vote the board, the new members in will meet. We typically have met in August, starting in August and go through May. But my understanding is those names won't come to you guys till September, so that pushes our first meeting back till September.
Well, so that's going to be up to the newly reconstituted board to move quickly on making those appointments.
Yes.
yeah, and forgive me for not knowing, it's my first year on the board.
That's fine.
I just tend to dig in once whatever I'm involved in.
I appreciate that. Yeah,
Just
Mr.
one
Chisholm.
question, it's probably more for Dr. Copeland or his staff, is that, do we have an IRB process for some kind of survey like this to make sure it's, questions aren't triggering and that definitions are clearly spelled out?
Yes, we do. It's not as refined as a full-blown IRB, but we
Right.
do review things like this for consistency and
Okay,
purpose.
all right, thanks.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
And thank you all for your time.
All right, the next section on our agenda is the public comment section. We just have one individual signed up to make public comments. I don't know that I need to read through all the language about do's and don'ts. I'll just ask Mr. McCain to come up and speak to us. Thank you. Come ahead.
Good evening.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
In October, we met with the academic committee and some members of the school board, and we presented a lot of information that we felt was very important. Also, we made some recommendations during that meeting. Since that time, we have not heard anything in your board meeting about any of the comments that we made. So that's why I am here tonight. First of all, with the achievement gap. We've been talking about that for years, and it's no movement at all. Matter of fact, I haven't heard the board discuss that at all. Let me just go down, 23, 24, SOLs, third grade. Only 36% of black students pass, compared to 76% of the white students. That was below the state average. The state average for black students was 53%. That was in English reading. Math, only 43% of all black students in the third grade pass, compared to 81% white students. We're talking about the achievement gap. Fifth grade students, English reading, black, 23-24, only 48% pass. The state average was 58. White students, 83% pass. The state average that year for the state for whites was 81. So we did a lot better than the state with the white students. Math, fifth grade, only 39% of the black students pass, compared to 52% with the state. White students, 71%. The average was 78. Eighth grade, English reading, only 41% of black students passed that year, 23-24, compared to 58% state. White students, 80% passed, equal to the state average. Math, eighth grade math, only 27% of the black students passed. State average was 48%. White students, 42%, the state average was 74%. So all we're seeing, the same percentage, starting in the third grade all the way through. That's what we're seeing. SOLs, math. And I can understand 2021, which I don't understand, rather, only 17% of the black students passed that year. And if you go across the last 3 years, 21, 22, 35%. 22, 23, 36%. 23, 24, 40%. So now we're talking about all the black kids in the whole division and listen at the numbers. And yet we are not talking about those issues. That was the math scores. Reading scores, 2021, only 45% of the black students passed. 21, 22, only 49%. 22, 23, 45%. 23, 24, 45%. Those are some of the things that we shared with the academic committee and with the few members of the school board that was present. Students graduating on time. Last year, 23.7% of the black students didn't finish on time. And I asked the board member, what was the follow-up for those students? And they didn't know. 23.7% did not finish on time. Chronic absentee. 23% of the students missed over 18 days. 23% of the students missed over 18 days last year. Behavior. In 2021-22, 9,135 behavior referrals. In 21-22. And in 22-23, 13,635 students, referrals, behavior. The
Thank
number
you.
is going up instead of coming down.
Thank you, Mr. McCain. A lot of
And
time.
23-24, what was that?
Your allotted time is elapsed.
But listen, this is important. We've been talking about this for years.
That's
So
right.
I'm not going to sit down until I finish doing this. Please.
Mr. McCain.
Please excuse me.
Please honor our rules.
Yeah, but that's the problem. We've been going over this for years.
Mr. McCain,
and this
please.
board has not responded. So I'm not moving until we do something. We need a commitment from this organization.
Mr. McCain,
You were
please
appointed to
respect our
represent all
rules.
these kids. We haven't heard anything at all on what you're doing to close these gaps or to correct some of these behavior problems.
Your time is
So what was that?
Your time is up, sir.
Okay, then set up a meeting. Then the only way I'm gonna stop is that you set up a meeting so that we can discuss.
Mr.
these
McCain, you
issues.
have been welcome at all of our academic success committee meetings.
What's
And
that?
you have heard the
They
conversation.
have not done one thing. They have not made any proposals at all that would change this.
Mr.
What I'm
McCain,
asking-
your time is
Dr.
up.
Day,
Please sit down. Don't make this more difficult than it is.
Well,
Please, Mr. McCain,
You know, if I
please
said-
respect our rules.
I wanna
If you want to be heard again in the future,
And-
you need to respect our rules
And-
and sit down.
and we need the board to do things and put things in place to correct some of these problems that we are dealing with. And that's what we are asking. So set a special meeting so we can discuss some of this with the board.
Have you emailed us with this, all these data points?
I'm sorry.
You're not supposed to be talking.
You're not supposed to, yeah.
Yeah, we're
This,
not
this is not the
These
forum
are
for
some
that.
very
Vice
important
Chair's in
issues
charge
that need to be.
Mr. McCain, do I need to call the police?
Well, that's fine.
You need to sit down. You are in violation of our policy. You have been asked multiple times to sit down. Are you going to defy that?
And Dr. Day, I've been standing here since 1998.
Mr. McCain, we have heard we have heard your points
Set up a
before,
date.
and we are not insensitive to
Set up
that.
a date then so we can get together and discuss some of this. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. I'd be glad to sit down. Set up a date so we can all get together and sit down and discuss these issues.
But we can't, I'm sorry.
You can't talk.
We're done. Thank you. The public comment period is over.
Okay? Would you respond to what I just asked?
It's against our policy for us to respond to specific questions raised in the public comment period. I am not going to violate our policy.
That's the policy of the Lynchburg School Division. I understand that. Let's just set a date so or say that you would meet to set a date. And I would say, I will. But I can't walk away with you not responding. All I'm asking you is set a date so we can get together.
I'm prepared to move that Mr. McCain be barred from any further
Second.
public comments. Discussion of the motion.
No need to discuss.
All in favor? Madam Clerk, please call a roll.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Gilio?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
Yes?
Mrs. Preston?
No.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Dr. Tinsley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
You are now barred from future public comment.
That's okay. So we're gonna have black kids like that just bar people when they're down here speaking the truth?
I'll take his place. You can borrow Robin Cunningham, Dr. Robin Cunningham. I'll take his place because I believe in this. We got to think about just what you're saying, Dr. Day. You born somebody that's speaking the truth. You listen to the bullying. I never did hear anything from y'all to ask, was any of this mental? But you won't take his statistics, but you would do what you want to do. So I'll take his place the next time, and you can put my name, Reverend Dr. Cunningham, and you can bar me from here too. Because this is getting ridiculous. We're supposed to be thinking about all our children. And we coming with you with concerns, but you sweep it under the rug. So I'm gonna walk because I don't want my wife to bail me out of jail tonight. Why? I'm real.
All I'm asking for the separate meeting. That's all I'm asking for.
We are done with public comments. The next item on our agenda is the closed session. Do I have a motion to go into?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Gilio?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
Yes.
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Dr. Tinsley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we're going into closed session.
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Jalil?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Dr. Tinsley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, now we need to certify the closed session, but because I was somewhat flustered when we went into closed session, I failed to read all the appropriate language. So let me state for the record what the purpose of the closed session was so that we can duly certify it. Purpose of the closed session was to discuss, as permitted by Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1, the discussion of assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salary, discipline, or resignation of specific Lynchburg City School personnel. So the board vice chair now moves that the school board certify that in the closed meeting just concluded, nothing was discussed except the matter or matters specifically identified in the motion to convene the closed session and lawfully permitted to be so discussed under the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act cited in that motion.
Amen. I mean, second.
Okay. Madam Clerk, please call the.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Jalil?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Dr. Tinsley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. So next, we have our consent agenda, and remember that an additional HR report was added to that. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, call the roll vote, please.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Jalil?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
Yes.
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Dr. Tinsley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, I'd like to now give the floor for a moment to Dr. Copeland.
Thank you, Dr. Day. A few personnel assignments to introduce tonight, but first I want to draw attention to an organizational restructuring within the Department of Teaching and Learning, which will introduce two new leadership roles for Lynchburg City Schools, the Director of Elementary Education and the Director of Secondary Education. This shift reflects a renewed emphasis on academics and student success while streamlining administrative functions. The first announcement on personnel is that Sarah Campbell will be the Director of Elementary Education. She comes to us with 25 years of experience in Lynchburg City Schools as a teacher, an elementary school assistant principal, a coordinator of extended learning, the current supervisor within elementary education, and the future Director of Elementary Education. For the Director of Secondary Education, Terrell Fleming will join us from Prince Edward County. He comes to us with 15 years of experience as a teacher, curriculum specialist in social studies, coordinator of K-12 social studies, supervisor of curriculum instruction, and look forward to him joining Lynchburg City Schools in July as the future Director of Secondary Education. Additionally, have two principal announcements today. The first is that Ms. Renee Anderson, who has over 30 years of experience in Lynchburg City Schools and is currently the coordinator of pre-K in the Virginia Preschool Initiative, will take over as the principal for the newly formed T.C. Miller Academy on July 1st, and she will head up our other pre-K academy. 30 years of experience. There's a lot of things that she's done, but I'd say early childhood and elementary education is her forte, and we're thrilled to have her take on that leadership role at T.C. Miller. And lastly, Dr. Jesse Turner, who has over 30 years of experience, mostly around Albemarle and Charlottesville, who has been a high school principal at several schools, a middle school principal, a director of student services, will join Lynchburg City Schools as the principal of Fort Hill to lead that program. His decades of administrative experience and working with challenged students is the right fit for Lynchburg City Schools and Fort Hill as we move forward. This is a momentous night for Lynchburg City Schools to name 4 of these administrator positions. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is the Finance Board.
Good evening, Vice Chair Day, members of the board, and Dr. Copeland. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. I am going to be extremely brief in my comments. So this evening, you have before you the April 30th, 2025 month-end financials. As of April, it marked the 83.33% of the fiscal year passing. The percent of revenues collected versus original appropriation was at 72.43%. I can attest that we have had a tranche of revenues come in towards the end of the fiscal year, so I anticipate that 72.43% to increase in subsequent reports. The amount of expenditures versus original appropriation is at 78.43%. When you include encumbrances into those, it equates to 98.6%. We have a handful of notable variances. The majority of those notable variances are due to outstanding encumbrances, which will most likely work their way out in the subsequent months. One is in classroom instruction, other that has to do with purchase services and materials and supplies associated with school-based programs. One's in function 1200 classroom instruction that has exceeded 124%. due to expenditures and encumbrances related to personnel salary and benefits. Function 2200, attendance and health services personnel, has used 147% of the budget. That's mainly due to encumbrances. And function 3400, vehicle maintenance and service, has expended 138.6% of its budget. And those are encumbrances related to the Ever-Driven Technologies contract. So this provides safe student transportation solutions. So that's not really one that we can adjust accordingly. The next is function 4600, security services. It has used 132.5% of its budget, and those are related to purchase services for Raptor Technologies and Sonatrol. Function 8100, technology classroom instruction, has used 221.6% of the budget. These are all related to the IXL learning, textbook software, and other learning experiences. Those are the expenses associated with the reserve that we received from City Council at the beginning of this past fiscal year. So those expenses are catching up with us. On the statement of revenue that you have before you, the state, federal, and local revenue collections are 77.78%, 41.90%, and 63.1% respectively. Miscellaneous charges for services are ahead of the target at 182.91 and 99.12. The monthly summary report for insurance, the April 2025 versus April 2024 year-to-date balance of health insurance costs have reduced by 61.8%, and that's the direction we would like for it to go. And then April 2025 ended in a positive position, taking in $152,633 more in receipts than we paid out in disbursements. So that's positive news as well. Other informational items: Brown Edwards auditors will be here the week of June 16th through the 20th. The Finance Department has been working steadily to make sure we are ahead of the game in our audit this year, and they are starting the FY 2025 annual audit process. We, in addition, have finalized some Laurel audits that needed to be processed out. And we are also starting the Laurel FY 2025 audit in about approximately 2 weeks. So, fast enough. I will entertain any questions that you have at this time.
Does anyone have questions?
I have one.
Sure.
So how are we looking, so we have some accounts that are over budget.
Yes, sir.
Are we looking total? Are we gonna come in at or below our projected budget, or are we gonna have some issues we need to work out at the end of the year?
I believe that we will finish the year in good standing, closer than any CFO is comfortable with. But I believe we will finish it in good standing. Now, there are a lot of audit entries that are made after the auditors are here that could make adjustments accordingly. But from all intents and purposes, looking at our revenues versus our expenditures, we're going to come in the positive at the end of the year. Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Next is unfinished business budget discussion.
So I'll give the preamble and I'll turn it over to our Chief Financial Officer. As you know, City Council is still deliberating and discussing. The governor's budget is solid and we know what those numbers are going to be. We have to present something and we need to get a budget approved so that then we can start the process of getting contracts out to employees. As you know, this is the last week of school and folks are going to head off to the beach and have their vacations. So tonight we present you a budget based off of what we expect the outcome to be, that we will receive the $2.7 million of additional funding from the city. Should that change sometime later in this month, then we will of course come back to you with amendments to the budget to shift funds around or to stop funding certain programs. We have developed about 4 separate courses of action on things that we could present to you to say if we do A, we'll save this amount of money. If we do B, we'll save this amount of money if you aggregate those two. So we think that this is the safest and best approach at this point. Everybody else in Central Virginia has issued their contracts, and we have had a few people that have decided to join other divisions in the past couple of weeks. So the goal of getting a budget approved is so that we can get contracts issued and get folks locked in and focused on next year. I will turn it over to our CFO to present the numbers and dazzle you with her knowledge.
It's me again, Margaret. So Dr. Copeland succinctly went through everything that I have on my list to report tonight. So the forms that you have before you are actually the forms that the city provides to us as a component unit to fill out and submit back to them. So we will bring you a more expansive award-winning document, budget document later on after we are sure what the revenues are going to look like. We don't want to put all the work into creating that award-winning document and then have to come back and change it all. So the documents that you have in front of you are what was submitted to the city's city manager's finance office for that. As Dr. Copeland said, that these expenditures are based on an anticipation of an increase of $2,711,756 over prior year's allocation. All intents and purposes, we're expecting a positive outcome on those expenditures, but we do have mechanisms in place should that amount be lowered, that we can come back and do amendments and change those revenues. And we have identified some expenditures that, even though it would be challenging to reduce those expenditures, there is a way that we can present you with a balanced budget should the city choose to reduce our allocation. As Dr. Copeland said, we are doing this in advance of the city's adoption because we have to get the contracts out, and so there's a lot of things a lot of moving parts. And so we wanted to make sure we had the school board's okay and adoption so that we can move along and move those parts. So the budget you have before you tonight not only provides for benefits, salaries, purchase services, maintenance, operations, all of those things. It also includes what we have been discussing, and includes a 3% increase across the board for all staff, and the associated benefits. Believe it or not, the associated benefits are almost as much as what the salary increases are. So we always have to take those into consideration. It includes the $50,000 a year for teachers, classified teachers. And it also includes the raising the limit for $17 an hour for hourly employees in this budget.
One point of clarification, it's 50,000 for starting teachers that are certified,
Correct.
differentiated from classified teachers.
All right.
Correct.
Classified teachers are 90% of the starting certified teacher's salary.
That is correct. So it also includes some increases for operating costs, like utilities, things of that nature. It includes in the expenditures here, 17 permanent building subs and 10 bus aides are budgeted in here as well. So I'll entertain any questions you have.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
I notice that grant revenues are going down
Yes,
this
sir.
year, so can you summarize for us?
So that is a loss of the CARES funding.
Okay.
So we do not have those revenue sources anymore, so
Okay.
that's why those have decreased.
Okay.
That makes sense.
I realize it's extra work, but have you thought about Plan DEF if we have a windfall? If somehow or another, the 30 million comes in?
We'll have
or-
a party.
A party? A party,
There's always a need. And so this budget gives you our basic needs. There are needs that we cut to get down to the basic needs. So what we would do if we were blessed with said windfall is go and get those cuts that we
Yeah,
made
go
to
get
get
them
down
back.
to this baseline budget and absolutely incorporate them back in.
Okay.
I sincerely hope that city council sees the difference between the bare bones and the cuts. So, or without the cuts, right? So, to know the difference. If we're the only ones who see it, it doesn't make an impact. It has to be shown, has to be demonstrated somehow, some way. Thank you.
Now, at some point, we need to approve this.
I'd love for you to approve it right now.
Okay.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the budget. Discussion.
I think they've done a great job of getting down to what we need. And we did a collaboration, committee, so they know we need it.
Because if our hand is forced, one way or the other, we will have to reapprove it, an adjusted budget later, but as of right now,
Yeah.
We have that option.
we always have that option.
Okay, as
yes.
long as we have that option, then
Yeah.
I'll be supportive, but we got,
Okay, well, the motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? The motion is to approve the budget, which has just been presented. Not hearing any further discussion, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Connor?
yes.
Mr. Gilio?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
Yes.
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Dr. Tinsley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, very good.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have our special education action plan.
It was presented to you at the previous
Yep.
meeting. Ms. Burks is here if you have any questions, but we do need a vote on that to make it official as part of the laws and code of Virginia.
Right. So there's nothing new, we're just asking the board for
Yes, sir.
its formal approval. Okay?
So motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the Special Education Action Plan. Is there any discussion?
I'll just say
Hearing
thank you.
none,
Thank
let's
you.
have the vote. Please call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Gilio?
Abstain.
Dr. Day?
Yes?
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Dr. Tinsley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. So we're on to
New business?
new business. Yeah, I've got two versions of the agenda in front of me and they don't agree. That's why I'm hesitating. New business, the ESSA applications, I think is what's up next.
All right, as part of every annual cycle, there are groups of title grants that need to come to you to be approved. There's a laundry list of those. Some of these that have been on the board before are familiar with doing this every May or June. Dr. Davis is here to do the intros, and we have many pieces of the team here to answer any questions, should you have questions about specific components of the grants. Dr. Davis.
Good evening, members of the board. I will try to be brief in statement. Asking again, just like Dr. Copeland said, it will be two items that this will be first read and asking for approval on. Please ask any questions when you get toward the end that you may have, and we do have several members of our team here that will be able to assist me if I am not able to answer it in some type of way. So again, this is a brief annual overview of the purpose and intended utilization of funds based on the anticipated allocations, and remembering that we're using leveled funding from the fiscal year 25. So the brief overview goes over each title. We'll start with Title I and the purpose of Title I and the funding, which is improving the academic achievement of the disadvantaged. That purpose overall is for all children, significant opportunity to receive a fair, equitable, and high-quality education to close the educational achievement gaps. We are still working very, very hard at that and have discussions very frequently, and have just met with several members of the state to go over some of this title funding and allocations. Next slide, please. So how we're utilizing that funding is through our division, or for division level, will be staffing, parent and family engagement, which we know needs to increase, and we'll continue to work at that and advocate. Neglected and delinquent set aside, and professional learning opportunities, which we firmly believe in. That school level is staffing and parent and family engagement. So the Title I-D Subpart 2 is prevention and intervention programs for children and youth who are neglected, delinquent, or at risk. The purpose of that subpart is to provide educational and support services for identified students who are considered neglected, delinquent, or at risk. The anticipated allocations are at the bottom of each slide and there for your review as well. How we utilize that at the division level, or how we intend to, again, you can go to the next slide, thank you. Whoa. So again, purpose of that is for those educational and support services for identified students. Next slide, please. So some of that is for stipends for, see if I'm on the game today, for stipends for hourly academic teachers and tutors, and that's in addition to a lot of the work that we're doing through All-In Tutoring and some other components, contracted services for mental health, medical, dental, and equestrian therapy that we're currently doing as well. Title II is prepping, so the preparation, training, and recruiting of high-quality teachers and principals. We are a firm believer in actively moving on that. Our team did a wonderful job a couple of weeks ago talking about TNTP and training on that, and we want to keep the ball rolling in the future. And the purpose for this and the allocation is support programs to increase academic achievement by increasing the number of qualified teachers in classrooms, increasing the number of qualified principals and assistant principals in schools, and increasing the effectiveness of teachers and principals by holding school divisions and schools accountable for improvements in student academic achievement. Projected allocations are listed there at the bottom as well, and we are continuing to work with all of our staff and all stakeholders for that increased high-quality instruction that all of our students deserve. That is, again, going towards staffing, if you've not seen a trend, to make sure that we have individuals in schools and throughout the division, professional learning, and the equitable participation of private schools. And you will see that bulleted throughout as we work through our title allocations. Title III is specific to language instruction for ELL for our English learners. That purpose is to provide effective approaches and methodologies for teaching for those English learners. Projected allocations are listed there. We do use those Title III Part A funds for stipends for work outside of the contracted time for ESL, and that's both elementary and secondary. We have a wonderful coordinator in Kenneth Burrows who does a lot of work with this. He goes above and beyond. Supplemental software and services that are needed. Professional development that is very much needed with increasing population. Supplemental instructional supplies and funds to support parent and family engagement and outreach, and he has done a wonderful job putting that together throughout the year as well. We just had a cultural night in early spring that was very well attended by our community. Title IV, Part A, is that Student Support and Academic Enrichment Grant. It's to the purpose, and we'll go through this in detail, is access to a well-rounded education. So that's, again, for all students, to improve school conditions for student learning, improve the use of technology in order to improve the academic achievement and digital literacy. The anticipated allocations, again, are listed there based on level funding. And to go a little bit more in depth, next slide, please. Well-rounded, we have categorical funding. Well-rounded has to have a minimum of 20% of those allocations. Safe and healthy students, a minimum of 20%, and technology has no required minimum. So we do have some flexibility, but still need to meet these guidelines in the required categories for this. We use our Title IV funding, Part A, for staffing needs, professional learning, and equitable participation of private schools. Are there questions regarding title? Yes, sir.
Yeah, and that first group of disadvantaged students, what specifically are we gonna be doing to address? 'Cause I know we just made some changes, relocating the two subgroups of students that I know have been struggling and the parents are far from. Do we have any targeted, comprehensive plans on how we can bring those kids up?
Yes, can I ask a follow-up? And when you say moving the two groups, what groups are?
Birchwood and.
Oh, okay.
And the bricks.
Perfect.
That was on the news the other day.
Perfect.
We got them closer to home.
Thank you. I wanted to make sure I answered that appropriately. Yes, sir. And part of the reorg that Dr. Copeland alluded to, there is an overall purpose and goal. We're actually meeting with the state and have a lot of partnership with the state so we can stay ahead of what's coming. One of the things that has been discussed is high-quality instructional materials, where you all allowed the adoption of that for literacy for K through 5 last year. We're looking at that adoption for all core content areas, K through 12, moving into next year. So we're going to be busy looking at textbook adoptions across all content areas to provide that consistency and continuity for our students. We're looking at our interventions and our supplemental materials that we're currently using. We're collecting data to see if they've been effective in practice, providing more training for our teachers, providing more training for our administrators. We're in the school building a lot more frequently for observations. So there are several pieces that we've implemented, and we're excited about getting feedback from our new superintendent that's coming in so we can implement some of those pieces as well. But we're extremely excited to continue to update you monthly, and I mean really excited to tell you what we're doing and how that's working. That's the goal, is to provide more data and to be more inclusive in practice with all of our departments to ensure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students moving forward. Yes, ma'am.
I have a statement and a question. Statement is, thank you for everything you just said, because I think that will answer community issues like Mr. McCann brought up. And when in reality time for the community to hear, will you look forward to seeing some results of what the community is concerned about? Like, what's the time frame that you would logically expect to see something?
Logically, when you're implementing and making the changes that we've made, logically, we're looking at a 1 to 3 year, depending on implementation. Mm-hmm. And I will never stand before you and not be realistic in practice. We are hardworking, and I would love for us to flip a switch or do a program and it happens overnight. Yeah. That would be my goal. But I honestly, too, believe if that were the case, a lot of people around us would be doing the very same thing. Our kids are owed and deserve great quality instruction, but we have to figure out, which we've been taking the time to do, where those gaps are, and it doesn't need to be a pointing of a finger or an excuse for what we're doing. There are no excuses here. Our students deserve the very best, and that means that we work that much harder, roll up our sleeves, and get to the core of what we need to. That's high-quality instructional materials, and that's training our educators in how to comfortably and confidently deliver that material. And I know we're getting there because some of the things that are on the horizon that we've seen just in the last 4 months of implementation, we have seen growth from the individuals who have truly bought in. And because we've seen that, that has trickled down and say, oh, I can really do this and I can adopt it and move forward. We're putting great individuals in place that are gonna help to move that needle instructionally, but understanding there are more parts to a student than just the instructional component, and providing that climate that's gonna help them grow and succeed for everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
I saw a list that had 0 for about 7 private school involvement. How is that going to change?
I will allow Ms. Christy Compton to speak to the private school involvement. That is not something that I dive into specifically, but I can ask her to come up and speak.
I asked her to go print signature pages,
Oh,
so she scrambled over to her office to print those.
Well, I apologize. I didn't even look behind me. I was on such a roll and didn't look and see if she was back there. But they do, I will speak to what I do know on it. They do have the opportunity to participate and to send in how they're utilizing funding and their funding sources. So they also have to take advantage in participating in.
I kind of perceived that. It just seemed like because it's 0 of 7, that there wasn't enough promotion or enough emphasis that this is available for you all if you all want to participate, and this is our duty, this is part of what is allocated, so why aren't you involved? Do we have any survey we could send to them, find out why are there reasons, or do they miss the deadline?
I can, well, and we can ask Christy to come up and speak to this as well, but I do know that they do reach out and have conversations. I have been very much a part of that.
Okay.
Just speaking to the 0 out of 7 for the private school participation.
I'm sorry, what was the question? If you want to restate it, I'll be glad to help you.
Let me restate the question. I noticed that even though we have the allocation available for private schools to be involved with what we have here, there is 0 out of 7 who chose to participate. Do they have reasons?
Actually, the 7 schools do participate in Title II and Title IV, and 1 school participates in Title III.
So are they seeing the 0 or 7 because this is next year's application and therefore?
It depends on the app. For Title I Part A, there's none that participate right now because we have a bypass. They, in previous years, got the funding directly from the state. We were one of the 14 school divisions that were part of the bypass. So they did get it, they just didn't get it directly through us. And going forward next year, for 26-27, we will have to allocate funds for that. But the other ones, we've always been the fiscal agent, so they've gotten it directly from us. So I think that's the difference.
We'll allocate from this, what we have here?
Yes. It's a formula based on how many students they have and how many students that we have. So you basically, it's automatically calculated per pupil allocation. So if we have 7,000 students and they have 1,500 students, we each get an allocation. So they get the allocation based on the number of students that they have. So they get us that. And right now we have, I guess, 6 schools that participate with us. For private schools. And they're all physically located within the city of Lynchburg. With Title I, it's where the students are located, but with the other ones, it's where the facility is located. It's like James River Day School, New Covenant, New Vistas, VES, Liberty Christian Academy, and Bridges Treatment Center are the ones that participate now.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Compton.
Sorry about that. I just stepped out.
Okay. Are there any further questions? This is an action item, so do I have a motion to approve?
Motion?
Second.
Okay, any discussion of the motion? If not, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Gilio?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
Yes?
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Dr. Tinsley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. And I see you stayed at the podium because you're next on our agenda. You go away. Literacy plan update.
Yes, thank you so much. And I know that this seems like a pretty extensive document, but I do want to point out that I was here about a year ago. I actually went back and watched the board meeting that we did for this presentation and told you we'd be back in about a year because we would need approval for grades 4 through 8. So this is our all-encompassing addition and add-on. And again, we'll need approval for this as well, or seeking approval, and this is our K-8 literacy plan. I will focus on, as we go through our slides, on the highlighted red areas because of the previous approval, just so you know what we have added on. Okay. So again, this is revolving around the Virginia Literacy Act, just to give an overview for everyone, that is supporting the science-based reading research. Phase 1 was focused on K through 3. That's what was approved last year, and I am happy to say we have made great improvements and seen great results from that through our student reading plans, and we did discuss some of that with the Academic Success Committee. Phase 2 is what we are seeking approval on, and that's grades 4 through 8. Overall goal is to prep our teachers for the alignment of science of reading, and that'll be through our VAL screener, our K-8 evidence-based literacy curriculum, K-5 core, and where we're at for K-8 supplemental. Next slide, please. So last approval was on June 18th last year, and we are seeking approval for the K-8 focus for this school year for the 25-26 plan. These are the members who have participated up to this point, and we know with some changes that we will have to revamp our division literacy team, and some of that reorganization will be included. Some of those individuals be included in the updated division literacy team as well. But these are the participants that we've had over the last several months up through May when we completed this. So we've had a lot of stakeholder input and made sure that we were very inclusive in practice of getting feedback from others. Again, this is our literacy vision. I won't go through and read each piece, but just highlighting the areas that we see as high quality and the needs of our students in the areas of reading, writing, speaking, and listening. Those high quality instructional materials, that science-based reading research, evidence-based literacy instruction, and a focus on vocabulary, knowledge, and skills across content areas. So focusing on professional learning, which we have done a great deal of this year and plan to continue with that goal into next year. And we want to take a little bit more of a scaffolded approach. We know that there are going to be different areas of need for incoming teachers who may not have been when we're talking about K-5 or the 6-8 when we get into that core instructional material, who may not have been and may not feel like they have a great knowledge base. So we want to make sure we provide that training, but we also want to build upon the training that we've already given to several of our stakeholders within the division. Taking documentation and resources across the board. I am struggling here with the slides today. Feedback mechanisms, we're continuing to collect feedback, and leadership advocacy. Our PLCs are important to the professional learning communities, so fostering those professional learning communities, we understand the importance of that and have had a great deal of conversation around that, even with some individuals from the state, which we have appreciated, and some outside stakeholders as well. Recognizing and celebrating the achievements, and I am excited looking at some data that's coming in. I'm excited to be able to report on a lot of those areas specific K through 5 and want to continue that as we work 6 through 8 and inclusion of this program. Instructional integration across the board and ongoing communication channels are very necessary. We are a firm believer, I'm a firm believer in transparency. Again, no excuses. We just want to continue to get better day by day, year by year for our students. We didn't change anything as far as our plans for comprehensive communication because we've seen great improvement in these areas, but we understand also that we need to continue to improve in these areas as well. So keeping up with social media campaigns, feedback channels, parent engagement workshops, we've done a lot of work with our websites and updating our literacy corner, so you will see a lot of that coming in the fall as well. Same selection process for the high-quality instructional materials. I won't go through and read each one of those pieces for you, but recognizing the core instruction, supplemental, and intervention instruction and how we're utilizing that. Core instruction is essentially our tier 1 across the board. Supplemental is providing that small group and sometimes one-on-one for those tier 2 needs. So it may not be for all students. And intervention instruction is that one-to-one, and it's a very systematic and explicit evidence-based instruction that's aligned to science-based reading research. So again, those extra scaffolds that are needed for our students. Our core 5 is listed here. For K through 5, benchmark advanced, supplemental materials are all listed there. We have changed nothing as far as that goes. We will have access again to Lexia next year, which we are pleased about and have seen some great gains from that. So this is where our primary discussion is, our 6 through 8 literacy instruction. HMH and TLET is what we use. And we'll continue to use that. HMH has been a great partner with us and has actually offered to update our materials for us at a very, very low cost with the updated standards, so we're extremely pleased with that. Our supplemental instruction, again, we're utilizing IXL, and they're coming up with some great features and enhancements. Lexia will continue, and No Red Ink is probably the newest one on here for everyone, but that is at a no cost for us. It is a free resource for us. The intervention component will use Lexia Power Up, and we have seen great movement in that as well. So as we're ensuring Virginia Literacy Act evidence-based research training, utilizing HMH, we've already been in contact with them. They're coming in to provide training, again, in a scaffolded approach. They're going to do so at the division level to ensure that we're able to provide a consistent message, do that with our administration and into our coaches, literacy specialists, and our educators as well. Lexia will provide training throughout, starting in the summer through the fall. IXL is a continuation of training. I believe our first round will be June 12th through our leadership conference. No Red Ink, and then we have our ongoing for VLA and VLP training for the Canvas modules and courses. The addition here for 6 through 8 is the VLP Canvas and non-Canvas course modules. So just as we talked about last year, those Canvas courses are essential, and that's across the board. So depending on what is taught, our resource teachers are actually also taking those Canvas courses. They're just in a non-Canvas module, so it's not as in-depth as those that are teaching literacy, but it is across the board for all of our stakeholders. When we're talking about training, we're continuing Lexia Letters Training Volume 1 and 2. We had success with that. Lexia Letters for Administrators, K-8 Supplemental Materials and Intervention. What we've added and what we're very excited about is a lot of work with VDOE to ensure that we're on the right track, and TNTP, that Comprehensive Literacy Network, which will stretch K through 8. And that training will actually begin June 12th. And working collaboratively with our principals who have already been through that first phase of TNTP, and letting them really advocate and communicate what's worked well and what they've learned from that. We have a strong relationship with VLP, the literacy coaches there, so we're very excited to continue that. We actually get visits, and they come in for PD throughout the year, and we're excited about the continuation there as well. The monitoring student assessment and progress, we heard you loud and clear before. There is a lot of assessment going on, so we're trying to scale that back. So the only thing that you will see added here, and we're actually doing some different considerations as far as assessments that we are researching and will bring back to the table to potentially reduce even more. But the only addition you'll see is vowels, because that will be a requirement for 4 through 8. It was just specific for K through 3 last year, but including that 4 through 8 with this plan. That'll be fall and mid-year again, and I'm very excited to discuss at a later time the growth we've seen with the student reading plans from the beginning of the year, who was identified at a high risk to who has moved into that moderate or medium to a low risk. So I'm very excited to share that moving forward, and very hopeful to see the same results with additions to staff, reorg, and structure for the middle school in the upcoming year. Division common assessments are quarterly, and that's grades 6 through 8 in the class, or for classroom teachers, and we will be working on those common assessments, and that will be developed from our HMH materials, so nothing outside of the scope, nothing in addition to what they will be seeing with the core instruction materials. Mentioned student reading plans a couple times. They'll go from K through 3 to K through 8, and we'll provide training on writing on those plans. We have worked very closely with Chuck Yarborough throughout the year to develop a more robust system of how we get that information out and how we're keeping up and tracking data, and we provide feedback on those student reading plans as well. Our team has looked through those this year, and we'll continue to do that through next year as we're getting people on board for K through 8. The engaging parents, caregivers, and community will just continue to do that as an extension from our approval last year for K through 5. With your approval this year, we would do that K through 8 and start to touch into some of those community partnerships, even into the high school as well.
Get it?
Yeah.
Okay, I got a bunch of questions after him.
Absolutely. I'm ready.
Yes, I have. Well, I think at our work session, we were introduced to
NTP.
TNTP, and
Yes,
it
sir.
was in 5 of our schools,
Yes, sir.
and it was 1st through 5th, or in those 5 schools it covered from K through?
K to 5.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, and now we're rolling out everything to 8th, and we're also going to tie this NTP, which I was very impressed with, by the
Yes,
way.
sir.
So
We
we're
are.
going to be bringing that to the other 6 elementary schools and through 8th grade at the middle schools.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is
I be-
that,
Yes, I believe that builds continuity and
That's what-
consistency for expectations and high quality rigor and relevance that comes with that, and just an approach of teaching us what we need, or teaching our administrators as well, and helping them walk that road of what do we need to see and how do we identify when we need to provide feedback and what's the quality of that feedback provided as well. And to have a streamlined process of what it looks like to go in and do an evaluation or observation and know what that truly means. It's important for our teachers to know too, when they get feedback, what that means and how to apply it.
Okay, and I must have missed this on the title. I was thinking that other title one, but anyways, is there a plan in place in the Title I for the Title I, some of those funds to be used for children who are struggling in math? Because I know we brought that in the Academic Success Committee.
Yes, ma'am.
So will they take time to focus on math as well, at least 1 or 2 days a week? Because I know teachers have been saying, we need more help with math.
Yes.
So,
And we've even looked at our structure for all in, just so we can give some time back to students who are struggling. So not, again, we don't want to get to the place where we're just remediation. We want to provide that grade level material, but we also understand that they need time during the day to do that. So whether that, and honestly, we're looking at things, and that needs to be in some science areas as well. So Title does our Title plan, and we'll go through that, and our division plan as well through the updates. But that's all encompassing. We know history needs to be touched as well. I'm not leaving that out on an island by itself by any means, but that title funding does go to our science, our math, and our reading.
okay, and then the literacy coaches, well, I know in some schools it seems like they've been stopped pulling kids, and then some teachers say they need to pull more, but when it comes to pulling them, one, can we get back to coaches, because I just saw coaches in here, that's what brought it up to my mind, that they pull on like phonics, grammar, comprehension. It's not really reading, it's just phonics, well, they probably do a lot of phonics already in the classroom, but definitely grammar and comprehension, you know, understanding, and then how, like, the structure of our language is set up at the kindergarten, you know, at the very low levels.
Yes.
So that was my other concern thing. And then also, I saw when the community, the college help that we talked about before, and when Liberty presented, and other colleges I know come in and help with the tutoring. How's that plan going forward for in the community centers and stuff like that? I just saw that on here, and it.
Yes. So we're excited about that. When we did the rollout and started to have those conversations, it was at the cusp of winter break and then getting kiddos back in, but we've been very much in touch with local colleges and universities, and they're excited to continue that plan. It's just the process of getting the hours that they'll go in, but they've designated time to us and restructured the way that they even do their practicum hours to allow the students more time in outside of the normal school day hours to go into community centers. So that is on the agenda to be revisited. We want to do that because we want to catch our kids wherever they are.
Okay, and then my last one was, the take-home literacy kits. I was wondering, is that something that could be for your struggling kids to be on a mandatory rotation? Like they take it out and they take turns taking it out, but if they're struggling that much, maybe, is that a possibility, or is that a costly thing that's not able to be done?
No, we actually delegated some Title I funding this year to send home literacy kits with all of our kiddos, and we did it up through a specific grade, and then we said, why stop there? We had a little bit more, so we provided more, and these ladies back here hand-packed those. One by one, so I'm going to ask Ms. Campbell to actually come up and tell you what was included in those take-home kits and how we utilize the title funding. And we had it listed as resources. Sometimes we don't go in as much depth of what we did, but I'll ask her to come up and explain that.
All right.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
So yes, we had a lot of take-home kits that were packed by myself, Courtney Bennett, our literacy coaches, instructional team. And inside we did OG in a bag. And so they had all the bags packed, yes. So we had actually gotten those purchased from, and they had cards in there, they had letter cards, they had sand, they had all the things to build the strategies there. We've also done, and then our literacy coaches put together videos for the parents so that they were able to follow those. Those are posted, and so they're able to do the activity, watch the video, and then know how to take, a book that they're reading at home. Hey, I can extend and do this kind of activity. So that was a start that we did this year, and we're looking forward to be able to do more next year.
Now, have you gotten a response back from parents on?
I can ask the literacy coaches. They are just now doing their Title I's parent surveys, and so those are some items that we get back with them on the survey. So we'll definitely check in on that.
All right, and congratulations on your new position.
Thank you so much.
I have one more question. It might be for you too. Do we have anything going on like in before school in the morning or in after-school programs, especially at our schools that are struggling the most?
Yes,
Okay.
I can answer to that. So one of the things that we have done, we've got some funding coming from our TSI and ATSI schools. So we actually had some after-school things going on this year, all the way through the spring, and are still continuing as we're prepping some teachers into next year. But one of the things we did is survey our schools and say, hey, this is how we're doing all-in tutoring. Is that working for you, or do we need to do something else? We got an overwhelming response that we'd like to do some before and after school, so we're going to do an addendum and do some reallocation of the all-in funding to allow them to run some before and after school programs, and we'll take data on that as well, just to provide those tutoring resources, along with some people call it win time, so that time during the day to get extension. So whether that is a remediation or an intervention, it might be an enrichment or an extension for students too, because again, we want to grab everybody. It doesn't need to look like a one-trick pony type of deal.
So question, is that, do we need buses for that in the morning, or are the parents responsible for that in the morning or afternoon?
We would provide transportation if it's in the morning, but our kids go to school so early, we have seen that a lot of people are requesting the after school, and we already have. We either set up transportation for our elementary schools that we're utilizing that, and we used funding for that, and got approval per the plans, and a lot of that's based off of EBIs, so the evidence-based instruction and interventions and strategies. But we are utilizing our activity buses in the afternoon, so if they're already out and running and we've got kids staying after school and doing things, we're utilizing that transportation method as well.
That's good.
We don't want to put it on the parents. If we want them there, we want to help them. We want to try every possible way we can provide that for them.
Excellent.
Well, let me compliment you, because it seems like you have tried to do every possible way to close the achievement gap, to make sure that all students are learning to the best of their ability. And I know that you have been working with some other organizations and folk here in town that are willing to help in that endeavor. So congratulations, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Does this need a vote, or is this just for information?
And it needs a vote, and I would love it if you would vote on it.
One quick thing. This is not the only presentation I've noticed this in, but you have definitions of HQIM, high-quality instructional materials. It'll explain that or give a definition for core instruction, supplemental this and that, but not for the background of Lexia or HMH benchmark, what Diabels is, no red ink in the one he mentioned. So I like acronyms. It's good to have just the tidbit about each throughout the document, but somewhere in the beginning or the end, I would think a little bio for these things would be very helpful for us in the public.
A glossary.
A glossary, yes. Where these came from and what they've done, maybe a sentence, and
Sure.
just like you do for the other things. Thank you.
Absolutely. And if you notice on the side, they do identify what the state has, it's what's approved essentially by the state and how their category is represented. So in explaining the core, supplemental, and intervention, that's that tiered approach. So that's what they fall into. But I am more than happy to bring back and let you know what specifically they address, because it could be, in some cases, it could be phonemic awareness, it could be vocabulary, it could be emphasis based off of Scarborough's rope and what they're covering and how that ties to our SOLs as well. So I'm happy to do that.
Perfect. Last thing, are you writing big checks to these places and things, or sending inquiries to or invoices to our CFO? How does that work out with all these monies?
No, sir. I am. I pride myself on being very cost efficient. I didn't come from a lot of money, so I value money a great deal, and I also want to make sure that anything that we spend is going to overall support our students overall in the best way possible. Most of the resources that we're using, we're not paying for. We had Lexia and Zern, which were two of our platforms that I've mentioned. Lexia specific to literacy, Zern specific to math, but there was no cost for that. No Red Ink has a free, I would call it a trial, but there is a free intro to that, and what is covered as far as the intervention components, that is covered in the free trial. Lexia and Zern will be offered to us again next year. There's a strong possibility, we're waiting on some funding sources, that would be fully covered. If it is not fully covered, part of that addendum would be to utilize the all-in funding, so it would not come out of anything operating.
Sounds great.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the updated LCS literacy plan?
Motion.
So moved.
Yep, and second.
Okay, any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Gilio?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
Yes.
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Dr. Tinsley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all so
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work and your team.
Okay, next on our agenda is school board member reports, starting with the governor's school. Mrs. Lowry?
Okay, and I think I gave that last time.
Nothing new to report?
Nothing new. They meet again in August.
Okay, how about the Laurel Regional School?
And the only thing I was going to report, Ms. Jamie's already reported on, so it was the audit. So we discovered there was supposed to be an audit given, and it wasn't being given.
Okay, very good. Mr.
So.
Connor, STEM Academy?
STEM Academy. We had a year-end STEM Academy board meeting on May 18th and a director's report. The enrollment for 2025-26 has been established. For the senior, we have 27 students for the class of 2026. For 2025-26 school year, here are the number of senior seats by division: Amherst 4, Appomattox 1, Bedford 8, Campbell 7, Lynchburg 7. Junior class for 25-26, for 25-26, here are the number of juniors by division: Amherst 4, Appomattox 2, Bedford 8, Campbell 6, and Lynchburg 9. They had internship partnerships, and they had a presentation, some awards that were given out. The presenting sponsors were BWXT and Framatome. Supporting sponsors was Electronic Design and Manufacturing, Delta Star, KNDS, Master Engineers and Designs, and a corporate sponsor, AMTI and Liberty University School of Engineering. There were internship, there was a senior banquet and award. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend it, but they had a senior banquet and awards. Presenting sponsors were Framatome, BWXT, Delta Star, Lynchburg Regional Business Alliance, and the corporate sponsor, AMTI. Some of the award winners were Cole Height from EC Glass, Bryant Maddox from Rustburg, Madeline Shelton from Brookville, and Nicholas Shelton from Alta Vista, and Abigail Carpenter from EC Glass. So 2 award winners for EC Glass. Ryan Purdue was also from EC Glass, an award winner. The matriculation of class of 2025, every student either went military or to secondary higher education. One is going to Bridgewater, one's going to 5 are going to CVCC. Thank you, Dr. Tinsley. One's going to George Madison, 3 going to James Madison. I'm sorry, George Mason, 1, 3 to James Madison, 1 to Liberty, 1 to Iowa State, 1 to Newmont, 1 to Randolph. University of Tennessee gets 1, University of Virginia get 2, U.S. Air Force gets a student, Virginia Technical Institute gets 1, Virginia Tech gets 12 of the STEM Academy students, and William & Mary gets 1. Spring 2026 internships will be 12 for mechatronics. Cybersecurity will have 7 students. Health science will have 8 students. And there will be a vet placement at Ridgewood Animal Hospital. And we also have a proposed meeting schedule for 25-26. We have one over the financial report. At the end of the financial report, there was a fund balance of $10,675.62. There was a fundraising that was given with several donations from many local companies, Framatome, Master Engineering, Liberty University, BWXT, Delta Star, to name a few. And we had some scholarships, money that was raised by CTA Consulting for a total of $11,800. Went over the strategic plan, and I won't bore you with any more, but we had a very comprehensive end of the year STEM Academy board meeting.
Okay, very good. Thank you. But I'm not done with you. How about the facilities and finance?
About the report, we are scheduled for a meeting on June the 10th where we're going to go over two major issues that Mr. Copeland is going to love me for, but we're looking forward to June 10th.
Okay. Legislative Advocacy and Community Relations Committee, Mr. Giulio.
We have our next meeting on June 17th, 3:30 p.m. right here in the building. We don't have too much on the agenda. I believe it's our last meeting, and I'm looking for volunteers to bring sweets. But also, we'll just discuss a couple of the items that we want to perhaps transfer over to next year so that the next year's makeup of the board or the committee will have a good basis to go forward upon. Best practices.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Academic Success Committee, Mrs. Lowry.
Yes, we had our meeting, so everybody knows in the community and everywhere else, we have the math adoption and government history books upstairs. So you're welcome to come up to the administration building, look at those. There's a feedback pamphlet paper there now, so you can put feedback on that. So we encourage people to come and look at that. Also, I checked in with our business partners, emailed them today. I had one response. The pamphlet that we were put out in the Academic Success Committee last year, focusing on the green section where parents from birth to the time that your children enter into school, to focus on these learning activities to help level that field and bring them up a little bit that are struggling before they get to school. So, so the one I've heard back says, they haven't heard anything back, but they've given them out. But I was just going to make it a plan on my part to check in every 6 months to see if they need anything or, how it's going, stuff like that. So that's what I did today. The new SOLs they come out in late summer, so there's probably over there, those are the only two who haven't seen it. That's IXL and math and language, scores by school. So from the beginning, middle, and end of the school year. And then also, we had the VALS data, and if you guys pass that around, I put the percentage at the end that says risk. It's from K through 3. You want that percentage to be high, because that means how many children are not at risk. Because when we first read it, we misunderstood it. So that I wrote on there, the risk that's high percentage, you want it to be high. That means less children are at risk. So that's what that means when you look at that VALS. So, and also, Mr. McCann, when he was with the committee and he was on here, we just want to let him know that we did look into a program he talked about, but it was not financially feasible for us, and there were some other issues that were going on with it, so in another state. So it wouldn't be a fit for Lynchburg City Schools, but we appreciate them attending, and that we did hear them and what they were saying. Also, let me see. I think that's pretty much it. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Partners in Education, Dr. Tinsley?
Yes, meetings are still suspended right now. I think they're going to try to have another meeting in June or July, but they've been suspended since April, so nothing new to report.
Okay. Education Foundation, Mr. DePaul and Mr. Jalil.
Nothing new?
Nothing that I have on the agenda.
Okay. And last is the Student Discipline Committee. We don't always have regular reports from the Student Discipline Committee, but I asked that this be put on the agenda, and there is a document attached to this. The committee had just asked for some summary information about the number of discipline referrals that we've had this year, and that's attached. The public can find it if you want to look at it by going to the agenda on board docs. It's attached, and all the board members have access to it. I won't go over it in detail. Just a couple highlights. The total number of referrals this year is rather high. It's over 12,000, which is more than the number of students in our system. So it's clear that there are a certain cadre of students who are generating a lot of referrals. But it is down from last year. Last year it was less by maybe somewhere between 300 and 400. The interesting change, which might not be a surprise, is that the second highest type of referral this year is for personal communication devices. And that's because largely of the change of policy that we made in January, which, if you've been following the news, is now state law. It's not just a recommendation from VDOE. There's also lists of how many referrals each school produced, and I did ask for a breakdown specifically of the cell phone referrals by school, and that's on the third page of this document. And it's clear that the vast majority of those are at the two high schools. Almost all of them, in terms of percentage, are coming at the high school. So I'm not quite sure what to make of that. Does that mean that in the future, as the students that come through the middle and elementary schools that are more accustomed to being without their cell phones will have an easier time of it at the high school? High school students have been having to go through a transition this year of moving from a more lenient cell phone policy to a more restrictive one. Time will tell about that. And the last page of this is something I threw together myself, just thinking about how many cases actually came before the Student Discipline Committee this year. I went back through board docs and looked at every single meeting and counted the cases that were posted there, and the total since last July is 142. That's 142 individual hearings, each of which takes about a half hour, involves the 3 Student Discipline Committee members, as well as the principal, or often the vice principal from the school, the student's parents, and usually some student services staff. So that's a tremendous amount of time spent on dealing with,
Severe.
with students who have rather severe behavior issues. Now, I just wanted this information to be available to the board and to the public. The other thing I wanted to say is with the board, with the Student Discipline Committee's consent, I'm trying to put together a document sort of summarizing how we handle student discipline cases, the number of people that are devoted to handling them. The way I've been phrasing it is if all our students were perfectly well behaved, how many people do we not need that we currently employ? So I'm trying to get an idea of how much dealing with student behavior problems is costing us in terms of personnel specifically. And Dr. Brown was kind enough to meet with me yesterday and help me sort out what some of the numbers are that I can put together. So I'm working on that. My goal in that is to hopefully educate the public and maybe members of city council who don't always see how many of our personnel are here because we have to deal with students who are having behavior problems. I think it's an under-recognized aspect of what we do. So I'm working on preparing that and hope to have that done by the time I'm no longer on the board.
Thank you, Dr. Day.
That's my report from that. Next item is superintendent comments. Dr. Copeland.
I'll be brief. It's that time of the year. And May 27th, Laurel had their graduation at 6 p.m. Lynchburg City Schools had 2 graduates. I was there in my doctoral robes to congratulate them and present them with their diplomas. And as you know, our high schools graduate on Sunday. 2 p.m. is Heritage, 6 p.m. is EC Glass at the Vine Center on the campus of Liberty University. I hope to see you all there. It's always a great event for graduation, and we look forward to how it's going to come out in this new arena. I do want to extend a sincere thanks and appreciation for all Lynchburg City Schools employees out there. As you come to the end of the school year, I don't know that they hear it enough. Kids are getting ready for the end of the year. Parents are getting ready to figure out what to do with their kids over the summer. Folks are planning vacations or kids are looking for summer jobs, but it takes a huge team to get this school year pulled off. And you get introduced to just a small number of the educational professionals that make up Lynchburg City Schools. And I'm not going to try to list all the different categories of important employees. I just want everybody to know that you are important, you are valued, and I greatly appreciate everything you've done over the 2024-25 school year to get us to this point. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. The last item before we adjourn is just summarizing upcoming meetings. Facilities and Finance on June 10th. The Discipline Committee will meet again to what we call a data review meeting, where we sort of look at an overview of what we've been doing this year. And it won't surprise me if there's a few more cases that we have to adjudicate. Legislative Advocacy and Community Relations, June 17th. Our next school board work session, also June 17th. That will be the last meeting of this board in full before it's reconstituted at the beginning of July. The Academic Success Committee meets June 24th. And then next iteration of the school board has its reorganization meeting on July 1. That's when the next school board chair, vice chair are elected, and just the reformation of the school board for the next year will begin on July 1. That is it. We are completed.
Mr. Vice Chairman, did you take off board comments from the agenda?
No, I just overlooked it. My apologies. My apologies. We'll start with Mr. Connor, board comments.
Thank you, Dr. Day. First, I want to thank Dr. Copeland for coming in at a very critical time this school year and really helping us out. I know it was a difficult thing to step in with the early retirement of our former superintendent, and you stepping in, and really, I think you did a great job, and I appreciate you being our interim superintendent. I also want to thank all of the educators at our schools, our custodians, our bus drivers, our groundskeepers. Like you say, it's a lot, our food service, security, PTOs. I mean, it's a lot of things that have to come together to really have a successful school year. And I'm really looking forward. I'm so excited about the things I'm hearing about our future academic programs, because I think it's going to answer some of the questions that came up earlier in our meeting. It's unfortunate we can't respond directly to, but I hope that if they continue to watch the presentation from our new deputy superintendent for instruction, that they will see that we are going in the right direction, and we really look forward to our new superintendent coming July 1st. I want to thank Ms. Day as the school board clerk and all the work she does. Our CFO, we appreciate you and your I get nervous every time we get ready to go over those financial documents, but I appreciate it. I want you to know you appreciate it. And I don't see her is Dr. Pugh and our new deputy superintendent. I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank the other board members for, we worked together. We went through some difficult things, and we worked through them without ending up on national TV. And I want you to know,
This year.
So I just want you to know I appreciate working with you all.
Mr. Jalil.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to also thank our highly effective superintendent, interim superintendent, for his work and his updates, sharing the details behind his actions, and keeping us in constant communication with LCS. It's been a blessing, and I thank you for your service. Ditto with the others from what my fellow board members said. I would also, in particular, like to bring out a special thanks to Calvin Knight. After 40 years of service, he is retiring. And I did not hear his name, so I want to bring out Calvin Knight. Thank you so much. 40 years is tremendous, a tremendous impact upon generations of children. And I will also mention Kenneth Riley and Elizabeth Taylor, 29 and 25 years respectively. Thank you so much. It is a tremendous gift to have the staying power to serve so many children in so many classrooms over so many years. It's incredible. So thank you for that. And to the board, I'm going to thank you for your service, of course. Very good working with everyone here. Not relatedly, but I am going to send this HR report to City Council, as I suggested I might do, to give them a little glimpse of what's going on over here. In case the squeaky wheel doesn't get the grease, I'm going to make sure it squeaks just a little bit. In a future meeting or two, I may bring up that we have a potential way to implement our Every Student by Name and by Need for a Spanish-speaking kid who was promised to go to, I believe it was Heritage Elementary, and then had to be changed to Sandusky Elementary, but there was an issue with the zoning that when the child moved here was covering a particular house, but then it was changed in the discussions of why things were changed. And I'd like to bring that up perhaps in the future if need be. And finally, the last two things, I may also bring up our seating arrangements as an effective way to move forward in the future. I may do this in the next one or the following meeting. And not necessary, but to reemphasize to the gentleman who really wanted us to make a decision about something, we are not allowed, we are not permitted to speak to the speakers during public comments. I'm not sure he understood that. It's part of our policy not to respond to that. And it could be done a better way, and a meeting can be set up at another time in another fashion, but the effort would fail from the beginning that he tried to do, and I wanted to make sure he understood that there's no interaction between us and a speaker of the public during public comments. And I thank the board members for reminding me of the details behind these kinds of things. So, thank you again.
I just want to echo my thanks to Dr. Copeland for his leadership through the last several months since we needed an interim superintendent. I'm very pleased that we were able to find him. I'm very pleased with the job he has done. I'm also very pleased with our selection of the next superintendent. I think we're all very optimistic about what the future holds, and thanks to all of you in the many ways that you've contributed. Mrs. Preston?
I'm not going to repeat everything that other people have said, but thanks to all of you, because this has been a challenging year to say the least. But you've stepped up. You know, what more can you say? So thank you.
Your turn.
Mr. DePaul.
Again, not to reiterate, but it's been great. Looking forward to all the other great things we're going to be doing. Just looking forward to more challenges.
And I just want to say thank you, Dr. Copeland. You've been very forward, frank. You've stepped up to the plate, and you have done a fantastic job, and we couldn't have asked for a better interim, so thank you. Looking forward to our next superintendent, and like DePaul said, all of the positive coming through the academics, so looking for that. Congratulations to everybody in their new positions, and thank you, teachers. I visited all my adopted schools this week and just said, have a good summer. So thank you, everybody, for all you're doing in every department. We appreciate you very much. Have a great summer.
Dr. Tinsley.
Yeah, I just think tonight was a great object lesson for us, the public, everyone who may have viewed this meeting tonight. 16th century philosopher Erasmus, I won't quote his exact quote, but he basically said, don't whip yourselves up into a frenzy until you have all the information. And I think we saw that tonight. Things kind of got whipped up in the beginning, but then as the meeting went on, Dr. Davis, I want to thank you for the, you just very clearly articulated how we are attacking this achievement gap issue. I want to thank you and your team, and I want to thank Ms. Lowry and the curriculum committee and all of the work that you're doing to close that achievement gap. Everybody around this table in this room wants that gap to close. We all have that in focus, and everybody's working on it. Even when we're not talking about it, we're working on it. So thank you to everyone for that. And again, Dr. Copeland, I've told you before, I think the work that you've done in task organization, that's a military term, but arraying the forces of this building, as it were, to put the right people in the right places to do the right work is going to be a definite legacy that you leave behind for the upcoming next superintendent. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Now, is there anything else on the agenda I have overlooked? I'm looking at you to tell me. If not, adjournment. Oh, okay. We are adjourned.